The flickering screen of his phone was the only light in the cold pre-dawn air. Alex stared at the message from Liam, a cold knot forming in his stomach. It was a summons, not a birthday wish. He was needed on the mountain set in California to deliver a storyboard file. The project's progress, it seemed, was more important than the day Alex turned 26. He pushed through his exhaustion, booking the last seat on a red-eye flight. The landing was rough, and a fever was already beginning to creep into his bones. The film set was nestled deep in the Angeles National Forest, a 3-hour climb up winding, unpaved roads. When he finally found Liam, his boyfriend barely looked up from his viewfinder, simply taking the drive from Alex's outstretched hand. He told Alex he could go now, his attention already back on the shot. They had been a secret for 3 years. 2 alphas together was a difficult path, and Liam had left his influential family to be with Alex, starting from scratch in a new city. Alex remembered the early days, the struggle. Liam working 2 jobs just to afford a simple ring for Alex's 22nd birthday. Now that warmth was gone, replaced by a chilling indifference. Alex had to ask, his voice hoarse. He wondered if Liam knew what day it was. Liam lit a cigarette, the smoke obscuring his impatient expression. He had no idea what Alex was talking about and questioned why he hadn't left already, knowing Alex had his own shoot the next day. There was no offer of water, no moment of rest. Alex felt a bitter laugh rise in his throat. He turned and walked away without another word. The return trip was a blur. He went straight to his own set, forgoing any rest. The weather had turned. A fierce wind whipped through the canyon. As the wire rig lifted him into the air, a violent gust slammed into him, sending him swinging wildly off course. The crew on the ground fought to control the lines, but it was useless. The impact with the ground was a white flash of pain. His back felt like it was on fire, and he couldn't move. Panic erupted around him. His agent and assistant were a blur of frantic motion. As the paramedics loaded him into the ambulance, his assistant, a kid named Leo, was desperately trying to call Liam on Alex's phone, tears streaming down his face. He worried that if Alex's injuries were severe, Liam would miss his last moments. The agent snapped at him for being morbid. Alex, gritting his teeth against the searing pain, managed a weak reassurance. Liam wasn't a doctor. His presence wouldn't change anything. The damage wasn't to his spine, thankfully. It was a deep laceration requiring more than a dozen stitches. Even lifting his arm sent waves of agony through him. Later, in the quiet of the hospital room, he tried Liam's number again. This time, he picked up. Alex started to explain that he was hurt, but his words were cut short. A soft moan bled through the line, followed by a breathless plea for Liam to be rougher, deeper. Then came Liam's voice, thick with satisfaction, remarking on how tiresome it was being with another alpha. The inability to truly mark someone, he slurred, was becoming nauseating. The phone slipped from Alex's grasp and clattered to the floor. While he was falling from the sky, Liam had been with an Omega. He tried to reach for the phone, but the movement sent a fresh wave of pain through his back, so sharp it felt like his heart was tearing in two. Liam never came to the hospital. Instead, his older brother, Julian, appeared. Julian was Liam's lifelong shadow, the standard against which he always fell short. First in academics, then in sports, and now in their chosen field. By 28, Julian was an Oscar-winning actor, a titan of the industry. Liam, a director, had yet to receive a single major nomination. Every person Liam had ever shown interest in, aside from Alex, had inevitably fallen for Julian. Looking at the man standing before him, all sharp angles and quiet confidence, a venomous idea began to bloom in Alex's mind. He imagined Liam's face, contorted with rage, when he discovered Alex entangled with the brother he so despised. Securing Julian was disturbingly simple. A conversation, a shared coffee at Alex's apartment, and a powerful sedative, tasteless in the brew. When Julian next awoke, he was on Alex's bed, his shirt unbuttoned and his hands bound by heavy steel cuffs. Alex watched him, his gaze tracing the lines of the other man's body. Julian was built like a panther, lean and powerful, with muscles that coiled gracefully even in repose. When Julian's eyes finally focused, they were chips of obsidian. He told Alex to look closely, to remember that he was Liam's brother. He thought Alex had lost his mind. Before he could finish, Alex lit a cigarette, took a long drag, and pressed his lips to Julian's, exhaling the smoke between them. The sharp tang of menthol filled his lungs. He whispered against Julian's ear, asking if there wasn't a thrill in playing with his boyfriend's brother. Julian's entire body went rigid. Alex moved his kiss to the mole on Julian's throat, nuzzling against the sensitive gland there. The actor choked, coughing, the veins in his neck standing out in sharp relief. He pulled against the chains, the metal clanking loudly in the quiet room. His eyes were red-rimmed, his disgust palpable. Alex remembered Liam mentioning how Julian loathed other alphas, how he'd once nearly broken the jaw of one who had tried to make a pass at him. Julian's voice was a low growl, a promise of violence. He warned Alex that if he wasn't released, he would tear him apart. The threat was almost amusing. Alex was an alpha too. He leaned in, pressing his leg firmly against Julian's gland, the friction causing an immediate, visceral reaction. A bead of sweat traced a path from Julian's temple down his sharp jawline. He shut his eyes tightly, refusing to look at Alex, but a tremor ran through his body as Alex shifted his weight, pressing down harder. He found it impressive that the renowned actor possessed such a potent physical presence. As Alex's foot explored further, Julian's anger boiled over. He demanded to know if Alex had any shame, his voice cracking with revulsion. The scent of another alpha, he hissed, made him sick. In the same instant, Julian's own pheromones erupted into the room. A wave of pure hostility, so potent it made Alex's head spin. Alex simply smirked and settled himself into Julian's lap, letting their antagonistic energies clash. It was a painful proximity, like being scraped with sandpaper, but he pushed through the discomfort and kissed him. Their pheromones fought for dominance, two predators in a cage, tearing and biting. But somewhere in the struggle, the rhythm changed. Breathing became ragged, attacks turned into invitations. The coppery taste of blood was on their lips. Julian snapped one of the cuffs and seized the back of Alex's neck, his grip bruising. The kiss became a desperate, airless struggle. Just as Alex felt himself about to pass out, Julian's teeth grazed his neck, a jolt like a hornet's sting. He was dizzy, drunk on the sheer force of it all. As his hands fumbled with the buckle of Julian's belt, a sharp impact against his lower back made him freeze. Julian, covered in a fine sheen of sweat that caught the lamplight, issued a final. He told Alex to let him go, and he would forget this ever happened. He was a knee, but Alex cut him off. He wasn't trying to change him. The next moment, Julian's face twisted in a mask of shock and frustration, both at Alex's audacity and his sudden hesitation. Alex hissed in a sharp breath, surprised by the other man's intensity, and rested his head against Julian's shoulder to recover. He would try again, only to slump back, exhausted. At first, Julian maintained a stoic silence, but soon he was drenched in sweat, muscles straining, the remaining chain rattling with his every pained movement. His throat worked as he swallowed hard, his teeth grinding against Alex's gland. He finally snarled at Alex, asking if he was deliberately torturing him, demanding he hurry up. Alex's heart hammered against his ribs. He glared at Julian, his voice surprisingly soft. He told him to be quiet or do it himself. Unlocking the final cuff, Alex had barely moved before Julian flipped him over, pressing him down with ferocious strength. His vision blurred, and the only sound he could make was a breathless gasp. The pressure was intense, folding him into an impossible position. He finally found his voice, cursing Julian, asking if he held some personal grudge or if he was simply starved. He reminded Julian of his supposed hatred for alphas and begged him to stop. For an answer, Julian bit him just above the small of his back. Alex's face flushed hot, and he pushed at the actor's shoulders, stuttering in disbelief. Julian just smirked, sweat dripping from his brow onto Alex's neck. He taunted Alex, asking if he was scared now after being so bold earlier. Alex, neck stiff with pride, retorted that he wasn't scared of anything, that Julian's efforts felt like little more than a scratch. Suddenly, Julian's mouth was on his, a punishing kiss that nearly sent the back of Alex's head into the wall. But Julian's hand was there, cradling his skull, protecting him. The kiss began with the intent to devour but ended with a strange, lingering tenderness. It felt like a needle dropping onto an old record, pulling a chaotic, beautiful melody from his very core. Julian seemed insatiable. At one point, Alex, truly exhausted, tried to crawl away, only to be caught by the ankle and dragged back. The notion of him being a straight-laced alpha seemed like a complete fabrication. Only when every last bit of their protection was used up did he finally relent. Later, as Julian dried Alex's hair after a shower, his hand kept drifting to the nape of Alex's neck, a gentle, possessive stroke. Alex tried to roll away, but Julian simply pulled him close, his body a warm, solid presence. Half asleep, Alex found himself kneading the firm muscle of Julian's chest, a surprisingly effective stress reliever. Julian's voice was a low, tired murmur, asking if his hands could ever be still. When Alex woke again, it was late, and Julian was gone. The apartment was so meticulously clean it was disorienting. If not for the lingering soreness in his body, he might have believed the entire night was a fever dream. As he dressed, he noticed his skin felt impossibly smooth. Julian had not only tended to his more intimate injuries but had also applied a scented balm all over his body. The man must have had some kind of obsessive cleaning disorder. He was finishing the carton of takeout Julian had left when a furious banging started at his door. He swung it open, annoyed, ready to yell at whoever was making such a racket, but froze. It was Liam, his face a thunderous mask. He demanded to know why the locks had been changed. He pushed past Alex, storming through the apartment, checking every room, even peering under the bed and flinging open closets. In minutes, the pristine space was a mess. Alex finally lost his patience, asking what was wrong with him. The storm on Liam's face slowly cleared, replaced by a faint, condescending smile. He concluded that the rumors he'd heard must have been fake, just a ploy to lure him over. Alex didn't understand what he was talking about and tried to push him out, telling him he wasn't welcome. Liam leaned against the wall, smugly assuming Alex was still angry about the hospital incident. He declared that a little injury was no big deal for an alpha and that he was here now, offering an apology. What more could Alex want? Alex stared at him, then a humorless laugh escaped him. He agreed it was no big deal. Liam was busy. Of course Alex understood. Relieved, Liam moved to embrace him, murmuring that he knew Alex would be reasonable. Alex's expression hardened. He added that next time he was injured, Liam should feel free to take even longer. Perhaps, he suggested, Liam could just attend his funeral and save them both the trouble of a reconciliation. The color drained from Liam's face. His voice turned sharp, questioning what Alex was saying. Alex was done talking. He shoved Liam out the door, slamming it shut so hard it clipped his ex-boyfriend's hand. Liam roared from the hallway, accusing Alex of trying to ruin his hands, his livelihood. The kicking and shouting became so loud that Alex had to call security to have him removed. The awkwardness of their morning fight was magnified by having to work together that afternoon. It was a historical drama, and Alex was playing a mistreated royal hostage. The young Omega actor playing opposite him was Caleb, dabbing ointment onto Liam's bruised hand with a delicate touch. When Liam saw Alex arrive, he sneered and pulled Caleb closer. The boy's voice was petulant. He wondered aloud who would hurt a talented director like Liam. Alex froze. It was the same voice he had heard over the phone from his hospital bed. As the scene began, Alex's glare was fixed on Caleb. The Omega flubbed his lines, his delivery flat and uninspired. He taunted Alex under the guise of the script, remarking how pathetic it was to be abandoned after giving so much to a lover. The words, though part of a fictional scene, struck a raw nerve. The phantom pain in his back flared up, a visceral memory of his fall. Suppressing his rage, Alex followed the script, his hand moving to Caleb's throat to push him into the water. But the moment his fingers made contact, Caleb shrieked and collapsed, clutching his neck as if he were being strangled. Tears welled in his eyes as he looked up at Alex, feigning terror. Liam rushed over immediately, helping Caleb to his feet and turning on Alex with a face full of recrimination. He reminded Alex that Caleb was a fragile Omega and that an alpha needed to show restraint. A hot knot of anger lodged itself in Alex's chest. He tried to explain that he had barely touched him, but Liam cut him off, lecturing him about the difference in strength between alphas and omegas. He claimed to have seen the whole thing on the monitor, accusing Alex of being terrifyingly aggressive in his performance. Alex was incredulous. He was being punished for a good performance. Caleb, his face pale, began to cry, blaming his own lack of professionalism. Liam soothed him, then barked at the script supervisor to rewrite the scene on the spot. Caleb would now push Alex into the water. Alex said nothing more. He understood that productions often catered to omegas, but he hadn't anticipated the sheer malice that followed. Caleb deliberately sabotaged take after take. He would laugh, miss his mark, forget his lines, each mistake happening just after Alex had been submerged in the frigid water. Liam's patience with Caleb was endless. He would gently console him after a ruined take, telling him he was doing great. He would touch his head and reassure him that it was okay to be tired. From afternoon until dusk, Alex was plunged into the icy pond over 20 times. His clothes were soaked through, dried, and soaked again. A deep chill settled into his bones. His head grew heavy, and black spots danced in his vision. Finally, on a take where Caleb managed to get through his lines correctly, Alex found himself unable to move. He stood frozen at the edge of the water. Liam's impatient voice boomed over the megaphone, demanding to know if Alex even knew how to act. Alex slowly lifted his head, but before he could respond, the world tilted and went dark. He had collapsed. The combination of a barely healed injury and repeated exposure to the cold had resulted in acute pneumonia. His fever spiked to 104 degrees. He woke up 3 days later in a haze, his first thought a panicked one about the production schedule. His hands trembled as he dialed Liam's number, desperate to know how far behind they were. Liam's voice was cheerful. He told Alex to relax and focus on getting better. A moment of relief washed over Alex, but it was shattered by Liam's next words. Caleb had been promoted to the lead role. A high-pitched ringing filled Alex's ears. He struggled to breathe. He reminded Liam that this film was supposed to have been for him. 5 years ago, a younger Liam had gotten into a drunken fight with a producer to get Alex an audition. 5 years ago, Liam had said the only reason he wanted to be a director was to make movies for Alex, to see him win awards. The memory was so vivid it felt like drowning. Liam's impatient voice sliced through the memory. He accused Alex of being emotionally manipulative, of always trying to use their past to advance his career. Alex's grip on the phone tightened. He said fine, he would withdraw from the project. Liam's response was a cold laugh. He told Alex that if he quit this film, he would never work in another one of Liam's again. Alex took a deep, steadying breath. His voice was quiet but firm. He would never work on one of Liam's films again. Then he said the words that had been a long time coming. They were breaking up. There was a clatter on the other end of the line, as if the phone had been dropped. Then came Liam's voice, laced with bitter laughter. He said fine. He was sick of being with an alpha he couldn't even mark. He wished Alex luck finding any work at all without his help. The line went dead. Alex tossed his phone aside and covered his eyes, but he couldn't block out the phantom sound of summer cicadas from 5 years ago, the scent of osmanthus in the air. He remembered the shy boy who had promised he would never, ever change. It turned out he had changed faster than anyone. Methodically, Alex deleted Liam from his life. He erased his number, blocked his accounts, and wiped every photo of them together. As he finished, a call came through from an unknown number. He answered listlessly. A polite, professional voice on the other end introduced himself as a producer and inquired about his availability. Alex sat up, his heart starting to race. He confirmed he was free, his hand shaking as he held the phone. The producer sent him 2 top-tier scripts, both with Alex in mind for the lead. One was an epic about an assassin undercover in an enemy court, the other a tense spy thriller. Both were incredible opportunities. He typed back furiously, his excitement palpable. When his agent finalized the contracts, it still felt like a dream. The producer mentioned that someone had recommended Alex, and after reviewing his past work, he had been thoroughly impressed. He was cryptic about who the benefactor was, saying only that Alex would find out when he got to set. Alex felt a surge of gratitude. Whoever this person was, he owed them everything. 3 days later, he was on the new set. The first scene was set in a hot spring. The plot involved a monarch who suspects Alex's character of being a spy and attempts to search him, leading to an intimate, dangerous struggle in the water. To capture a genuine sense of surprise, the director kept the identity of his co-star a secret. He only instructed the makeup and wardrobe team to make Alex look ethereal and dangerously beautiful. The result was startling. The man in the mirror was a stranger, with long dark hair like silk and a silver mask covering the upper half of his face. A single red cord was tied around his waist, accentuating a slender frame. Outside, he heard a familiar, confident voice. It was Liam, handing out fruit to the crew, explaining that he had volunteered to fill in for the cinematographer who had called in sick. His heart went cold. He almost turned to leave, but Liam spotted him and approached with a practiced smile, pressing a peach into his hand. Liam didn't recognize him. After 5 years of friendship and love, a mask and some makeup had made him a stranger. Liam tried to adjust a stray strand of Alex's hair, but Alex flinched away instinctively. Undeterred, Liam leaned in close, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. He advised Alex to be bold in the upcoming scene, to really sell the passion. He mentioned that the lead actor, his brother, despised alphas. If Alex was aggressive enough, he might force Julian to break character, which would be a huge publicity win for Alex. Alex stared at him from behind the mask, speechless. Liam had no idea he was coaching his ex-boyfriend on how to seduce his own brother on camera. Alex turned away, his voice a low rasp as he thanked Liam for the advice, promising to follow it to the letter. As the cameras prepared to roll, Alex's own anxiety spiked. It wasn't just because of Liam. The prospect of an intimate scene with another alpha, a stranger, set his own instincts on edge. He took a few deep breaths, then walked through the paper screen doors onto the set. Steam ghosted across the surface of the water, obscuring and then revealing the figure already waiting. It was a silhouette of power, muscles defined by the flickering candlelight. Alex knelt at the edge of the pool and reached out, his hands covering the man's eyes. The water wicked up his sleeves. In a flash, the man twisted, grabbing Alex's wrist and pulling him into the water with a powerful tug. Water splashed everywhere as Alex landed in his arms. When their eyes met through the swirling steam, Alex's mind went blank. It was Julian. An A-list movie star was playing his supporting role. As their wet hair tangled together, Julian's grip tightened, his eyes like the deep ocean. He delivered his line, asking what Alex's character intended to do. Alex, still reeling from the shock, forgot his own lines. On instinct, he plucked a floating blossom from the water and pressed it to Julian's lips, then leaned in and kissed him through the petal. A single drop of water traced a path down Julian's throat. The director yelled cut. He was thrilled, praising Alex's performance as authentic and the kiss through the flower as a touch of genius. Liam, standing nearby, echoed every word of praise, fawning over the director. He leaned over to Alex again, urging him to be even more seductive in the next take. But now Alex was frozen. The thought of performing this scene with Julian while Liam watched every detail made his skin crawl. When they resumed, his movements were stiff and awkward. He bumped his lip against Julian's teeth during the kiss, making them both wince. The director called cut again, frustrated. Julian's gaze was heavy. His voice was a low murmur only Alex could hear. He asked if the presence of Liam was making him forget how to act, or if he was hoping for a second chance. Alex glared back, a bitter smile touching his lips. He retorted, asking what that made Julian, getting intimate with his brother's ex right in front of him. His next words were swallowed as Julian's mouth suddenly closed over his throat. For a moment he was stunned. Then, a competitive fire ignited within him. He grabbed a nearby wine flask, took a swig, and met Julian's lips, the cool liquid passing between them. He moved with a newfound fluidity, arching his back, letting his body sway against Julian's. Just as he was getting lost in the performance, Julian's hand clamped around his throat, cutting off his breath. His other hand found the artery in Alex's neck, a touch that was both a caress and a threat. Then, in one powerful move, Julian flipped him, pinning him against the edge of the pool. He knew it was just acting, but when he saw the conflict in Julian's eyes, a mix of revulsion and fascination, he was pulled under completely. His skin tingled. His blood sang with a dangerous desire to be overwhelmed, to be marked. Every touch, every kiss from Julian drew a soft gasp from his lips. Julian was no longer composed either. His muscles were taut, his breathing ragged. He hissed at Alex to stop making those sounds. But Alex only pressed closer, his fingers tangling in Julian's wet hair, his legs wrapping around Julian's waist. He whispered against his ear, giving him permission to do whatever he wanted. At that moment, there was a clatter from behind the cameras. Liam had dropped something, his face ashen. He fumbled to turn off his monitor, but a crew member stopped him. Alex's attention wavered, his eyes drifting towards his ex, but Julian's hand clamped on his jaw, forcing his gaze back. From an angle hidden from the cameras, Julian's eyes shot a look of pure defiance at his brother. His teeth closed over the fake gland on Alex's neck. The world narrowed to the heat of Julian's body against his, the frantic beat of his own heart. He arched instinctively, pressing himself more firmly against Julian's mouth. He heard a low curse, and then a sharp, piercing pain. Julian's teeth had broken through the prosthesis, puncturing his actual skin. It shouldn't have been possible. As an alpha, he shouldn't be able to tolerate another's mark. A primal scream of protest rose in his throat as a foreign energy flooded his system. A wave of lava that extinguished his own instincts and demanded complete surrender. His head fell back, the mask slipping from his face. His expression, pale, flushed, eyes wet with tears, was laid bare for all to see, most of all for Liam. The second the director called cut, a raw, agonized roar tore from Liam's throat. Alex looked over and saw him standing there, his hands bleeding from where he'd clenched them into fists, his eyes burning with a furious crimson light. After the shoot, Alex was in a daze. As Julian lifted him from the water, his agent and Leo rushed forward, their faces pale with panic. The agent practically threw Alex over his shoulder and ran, desperate to avoid any behind-the-scenes footage leaking to the press. Back in his room, Alex touched the tender, scabbed-over skin on his neck. Even that light contact sent a shiver through him. He realized with a jolt that acting with Julian was a dangerous game. It was too easy to get lost, to feel a pull towards him that felt less like performance and more like worship. Later, the director called everyone for a late dinner. Alex threw on a turtleneck and headed out, only to find Liam waiting in the shadows outside his door. His face was pale, his knuckles still bloody. He accused Alex of orchestrating the entire thing, joining this cast, wearing the mask, performing that scene with his brother, all just to torture him. He grabbed Alex's shoulders, his voice cracking with a pain that bordered on madness. He admitted he regretted everything. He told Alex that if he apologized and quit the movie right now, he would take him back. The sheer arrogance of it was breathtaking. Alex shoved him away with a contemptuous laugh. Liam was delusional if he thought Alex would throw away this opportunity for him. Liam grabbed his wrist, his face contorted. He insisted that Alex was just using Julian as a substitute, that Julian would never fall for him. He reminded Alex, his voice full of venom, that his brother was an actor. All that on-screen passion was fake. The words landed like stones in Alex's chest. He pulled his arm free, coldly stating that it didn't matter. He didn't even like his brother. As he walked away, he saw a figure standing at the end of the hall, partially obscured by the moonlight slanting through a window. It was Julian. Before Alex could say anything, Julian's phone rang. The call was clearly urgent. As Julian listened, his brow furrowed. Liam rushed over, his voice strained, asking if the call was from Caleb. A cold dread settled over Alex as Liam quickly explained that he'd heard from a friend that Caleb had been injured during a shoot. The two families, it turned out, were old friends. Liam pleaded with Julian to let him come along, even though Caleb had only called Julian for help. Julian said nothing, just turned and walked away, Liam scrambling to follow. Alex stood alone in the empty hallway. A cold mountain wind blew through the open window, chilling him to the bone. So Julian knew Caleb too. They were close. In the end, Alex knew nothing about him at all. He was just another coworker. He found himself at the edge of the hotel property with a six-pack of beer, the night air sharp and clean. He felt foolish for his brief moment of disappointment. After a while, he heard footsteps. A tall figure blocked the moonlight. It was Julian holding a small paper bag from a pharmacy. He asked Alex with a raised eyebrow if he was enjoying the moon. Alex's heart hammered against his ribs. He asked why Julian had returned so quickly from seeing Caleb. Julian took the beer from Alex's hand and took a sip, his expression unreadable. He stated that his time was too valuable to waste on Caleb. Then why, Alex wondered, was he here? Julian's gaze met his, and he answered the unspoken question. He had gone to get Alex medicine for his neck. The memory of the chaotic night in his apartment surfaced, making his face flush. He declined Julian's offer to help apply the ointment. As they walked back toward the hotel, Alex's shoelace came undone. He bent to tie it, but Julian was faster, kneeling before him under the bright lights of the lobby. Alex was mortified, terrified a tabloid photographer might be lurking nearby. He protested, but Julian simply looked up at him, his expression intense, and gripped his ankle. He reminded Alex that this wasn't what he had called him the other night. The lobby was full of people. Alex's ears burned. He managed to choke out Julian's name, then his first name. Julian just watched him, waiting, until Alex finally whispered the word brother. Only then did Julian stand, a faint smile playing on his lips. Outside Alex's room, Julian leaned against the wall, blocking his path. His eyes were dark pools. He said that since he had helped Alex twice, he deserved something in return. Before Alex could ask what, Julian kissed him. It was deep and searching. For a dizzying moment, Alex responded, his heart pounding. Then he pushed Julian away, his voice brittle. He asked if this was just more rehearsal. He accused Julian of seeing him only as a replacement for Liam. As Julian turned to leave, his voice was low. He said of course it wasn't that. But a relationship between two alphas, he added, could never have a happy ending. He didn't doubt the sincerity of feelings, but sincerity was fleeting. The next morning, his agent couldn't wake him. Someone else entered his room with a tray of food. He drifted into a strange dream of a silver wolf, its eyes fierce, its teeth grazing his neck. Then the wolf became a playful dog, whining for attention, its paws on his shoulders. A voice full of longing complained that it had worked so hard to be seen, only to be rejected. The dream figure then gently applied medicine to his body, from his neck down to his legs. He woke with a start to an empty room, the dream already fading. After breakfast, a wave of nausea hit him. His assistant made an appointment at a local clinic. After a battery of tests, a young doctor, clearly an intern, sat him down. With a grave expression, he spoke of anomalies, masses in his abdomen and near his gland that looked like tumors. He scheduled a biopsy for the following week. The world seemed to tilt as Alex left the clinic. The sky was a heavy, oppressive gray. He stumbled, bumping into someone and knocking them over. It was Liam helping Caleb up from the ground. Liam's face was contorted with fury. He accused Alex of doing it on purpose, of becoming vicious and cruel. Alex stared at him, his stomach churning. He turned to leave, but Caleb spoke up, his hand on his cheek, claiming to be bleeding again but insisting Alex didn't mean it. Liam grabbed Alex's arm, demanding he apologize to Caleb. A memory surfaced. 2 years ago, at a dinner, when a producer had tried to force Alex to drink. Alex had refused, and the man had demanded an apology. Liam had stepped in, smashing a bottle over his own head and kneeling in the broken glass, declaring that Alex's fault was his own. He had promised Alex that as long as he was around, Alex would never have to apologize to anyone. Now, holding the damning medical report in his hand, Alex managed a faint smile. He said he was sorry. But before Liam could gloat, Alex doubled over and was violently sick, vomiting all over Liam's expensive shoes. Liam was livid, snarling that Alex found him so disgusting he couldn't even look at him. A hand gently pulled Alex aside. Someone was wiping his face with a tissue. It was Julian. His voice was calm as he addressed his brother. He told Liam that if he knew he was so repulsive, perhaps he should be the one apologizing to Alex. Liam, splattered and fuming, was incredulous. He pointed out that Alex had been the one to get sick on him. Julian's face was impassive. He stated that he had seen the whole thing. Caleb had tripped on his own, and Liam had tried to blame Alex. Since Liam's eyesight was clearly failing, Julian suggested, perhaps he wasn't fit to be a cinematographer. The threat was clear. Liam's expression shifted. He mumbled a terse apology to Alex and stormed off. Julian then turned to Alex, his expression concerned. But Alex couldn't hear his words. A dull roar filled his ears. Julian gripped his shoulders, asking why Alex seemed to hate him so much. The question broke through the fog. Hate him? It was the opposite. Looking at Julian felt like winning a grand prize, only to be told the world would end in 5 seconds. A desperate, reckless energy seized him. He grabbed Julian's shirt, slamming him against the wall. He confessed that he didn't like being turned inside out by another alpha, but his time was running out. His voice broke as he told Julian he couldn't drag him down too. Julian's expression changed. He snatched the file from Alex's hand. As he read the report, his face went pale, his eyes closing as if in pain. He stood motionless for a long moment, then made a quick phone call. He took Alex's hand and led him to his car. Alex, still in a daze, asked where they were going. Julian asked if he had his ID. He did. The drive was silent and fast. They didn't stop at another hospital. Instead, Julian pulled up in front of the county clerk's office. Alex stared at the building, his voice a hoarse whisper as he asked why they were there. Julian unbuckled his seatbelt. With the calm air of someone buying groceries, he said he was there to marry him. Alex's breath hitched. He asked why. Julian's fingers dug into his jaw, his eyes blazing. He accused Alex of starting something and then trying to run. He growled that Alex wasn't getting away from him, not even in death. In the face of such a terrifyingly unromantic proposal, Alex did the only sensible thing. He agreed. He wasn't a fool. He was dying. There was no time for pride. The process was surprisingly easy. The days that followed were a blur of frenzied passion. Between scenes, Julian was constantly touching him, kissing him, holding him as if afraid he would vanish. Finally, during a break in filming, a helicopter landed on set to take them to a specialist for a second opinion. The nameplate on the doctor's office door made Alex's blood run cold. Dr. Alistair Vance. Julian explained that it was his grandfather. This was the man who had nearly disowned Liam for being with another alpha. Alex panicked. An alpha with a terminal illness was not the kind of partner he would approve of. But Julian held his hand firmly, stating that Alex was his partner, and his family would just have to learn to deal with it. The old man's gaze was sharp enough to cut, but he remained professional. He asked a series of questions and reviewed the scans, his frown deepening. Finally, he took off his glasses and asked for the name of the intern who had made the initial diagnosis. After a brief phone call, the terrified young doctor was brought into the room. Julian's grandfather threw the report at him and proceeded to berate him with a controlled fury. He demanded to know if the boy had never heard of secondary differentiation, when an enigma marks an alpha and transforms them into an omega. What he had identified as tumors were an embryo and a newly forming gland. After dismissing the intern, Dr. Vance's demeanor towards Alex shifted completely. He apologized profusely, explaining that Julian was an enigma. As compensation for the distress, he wondered if Alex would consider taking his grandson off his hands. Alex's mind was reeling. He wasn't dying. He was pregnant. A few more tests and a simple drugstore kit confirmed it. 2 solid lines. He turned to Julian, fury finally bubbling to the surface. He grabbed his new husband by the collar and slammed him against the wall, demanding to know why he hadn't mentioned being an enigma sooner. For the first time, Julian looked almost sheepish. He apologized, promising to do all the cooking and cleaning from now on if Alex wouldn't leave him. What else could he do? He forgave him. On their way back to the set, Julian's grandfather invited them to the family's nearby villa, insisting on gifting Alex a rare diamond as a further apology. At the house, while Julian went to pack some things for their stay on set, Alex settled on the couch to play a game on his phone. A shadow fell over him. It was Liam, a smug grin on his face. He assumed Alex had come crawling back to him for his birthday tomorrow. Alex just raised an eyebrow and told him he'd forgotten, but he would consider sending a gift for his funeral. Liam's face twisted with rage, but then he spotted the ornate box on the table beside Alex. He sneered, accusing Alex of lying, pointing to the gift he'd obviously brought. He reached for it. Alex jumped up to stop him. The box contained the positive pregnancy test, which Julian had insisted on keeping as a memento. Liam held the box high out of reach, taunting him. He opened it and his smile froze. Tucked beside the test was the updated medical report with Alex's name on it. His face went white. He knew Alex was an alpha. It was impossible. He lunged at Alex, his voice a raw scream. He demanded to know whose child it was, who had turned him into an omega. A calm voice answered from behind him. Mine. Julian was descending the grand staircase. He pulled Alex into his arms. Liam, he said, his voice dangerously soft, you should learn some manners. It's rude to shout at your brother-in-law. Liam stared at them, uncomprehending. Julian simply leaned in and kissed Alex gently. We were married yesterday, he announced. It's all perfectly legal. The news broke something in Liam. He fled the house, and later that night, he crashed his car while driving recklessly. He tried to call Alex from the hospital, but Alex didn't answer. The downfall was swift. It turned out Caleb had been using Liam as a stepping stone. And when his affair with a powerful producer was exposed by the man's wife, a trove of compromising photos was leaked to the public. Liam was in them. Their careers were over. Finishing the film while pregnant was a challenge, but it was worth it. At the following year's awards ceremony, Alex and Julian stood on stage together, each holding a golden statue. In the dazzling sea of camera flashes, they held hands tightly as Julian announced their marriage to the world. In that moment, Alex finally understood. Every wrong turn, every storm had been a part of the path. The most unexpected encounters were, perhaps, the ones that were always meant to be.